Hello, my name is L'Oreal, and I have been encouraged by my spirit guides for the highest good to make a series of videos. And the first starting with a topic that is not very comfortable to talk about, that people don't like talking about. It's sexual trauma. And it seems to be prevalent in so many people. I recently took a class, took a course, read a book, and I think the statistic, if the Center of Disease Control statistic is correct, that like 1 in every 5 women have had this. And I feel like the numbers are higher even when you include men, and when you actually, if we were to test a bigger market of people. But to me, that's just an astounding number. And the majority of the time, these things happen within a family unit. So it's very alarming, but yet so common. And I feel like people just do not talk about it because of the shame, because of the family dynamic. And then how do you deal with that? So this first set of videos, I'm just going to start talking. I'm not sure what's going to come out. They don't want me to go into every bit of detail. That's not totally necessary. But sharing the story to help normalize it, to help spread awareness, to maybe help as a parent see the signs and cope with it a little bit differently. And hopefully just shed some light on a very dark and like it just feels icky. I don't know how else to describe the energy, but ick. And to shed some light on that type of thing. So, unbeknownst to me, I had no recollection of this because I keep saying 3 or 4 years old, so it must have been in that period of when I was turning 3 into 4, because I just keep getting 3 or 4. And who remembers anything from when they're 3 or 4 years old? I sure didn't. I didn't have many memories from that time frame of my life at all. But going through a near-death experience and having several spiritual awakenings, one day around the same age that my youngest son was, 3 or 4 years old, I started remembering. And it wasn't like it was a dream. I would be in the middle of the day and I would get triggered in some sort of way, just doing nothing, like picking up toys. And I would have like a flashback. And I was like, what the hell is this? Why are you showing me this? Why is this happening now? Everything was kind of at a good place in my life. This was like I felt like a bomb was dropped on me. Like I was bamboozled. And it's like my spirit team was just slowly dripping these things to me of what had happened. I'm a 44-year-old woman, and I had no idea this had happened. I started asking questions, started talking to my mother, family members, and things like that. And a lot of things were revealed that I guess were there in front of my face, but because no one ever talked about it, no one ever... It was like it was swept under the rug, but it was also in everyone's faces at the same time. It was completely mind-blowing to me how all of extended family, everyone could kind of suspect and know certain things and even comment on it. Like, well, maybe I should just go into what I started remembering. We were in a small house in St. Louis at the time. And my uncle and his construction buddy were remodeling our bathroom. They actually stayed in our house, I want to say for like a month or two while they were doing this. And, you know, no one ever thought, oh, it was the only bathroom in the house. It was a small house. Can you stop so she could use the bathroom? There was no privacy. There was no, I don't know. You're a little kid and you can just, you know, it's no big deal because you're little, right? I would get visions of my uncle pacing back and forth in the living room. Like he knew what was happening, knew what was going on, didn't do anything, didn't say anything, but kind of allowed this construction buddy to kind of do whatever he wanted. And no one stuck up for me. So on many levels, that just feels really messed up. But for whatever reason, my uncle from then on just was really sweet on me. I feel like he must have been there and watching at some point. And he would obviously talk about how much he loved me. Because every time I would be, you know, you don't see your uncle all the time. Every time we would be around him in a family thing or whatever, it was like, oh, he's sweet on her. And I just always thought that was so weird. How could an adult be sweet on someone? Like just the words never sat right with me. And I was always like, okay. And just whatever, like, like how creepy is that? Sorry. So the next time it happened, again, mind you, in the same house, and there was neighborhood kids around, and they were all different ages. And the oldest one was as old as my oldest son. Again, being triggered in my now reality for me to remember these memories coming out. Because I would have an interaction with my oldest son and he would say things and do things that were totally just him being him. And I would have flashbacks. And it was so alarming because I would be trying to deal with my present moment with my son and yet trying to process the information, the downloads that I was getting. So, they're like, we don't need details, but here's all the details. I don't know how to describe anything without just saying everything. We were all downstairs in the basement playing, and I just remember being on top of something, like I was like on display, and they were telling me to do stuff, and I guess I would do it. And I'm like, I don't know. Is this bad? Is this wrong? What is this older, clearly at least a good 10 years older kid telling me to do? I don't know. What's so great about this? Yeah, I have a this. What, you know, to me, it didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I was just there and doing what the older kids in the room were telling me to do. And I distinctly remember my mother coming down the stairs and like catching it in action, and everyone froze, and she told everyone to leave, and like the room was cleared out. And I just remember thinking like, what happened? Like what? But the thing that I did remember, even though I don't even really know exactly what happened after that, how she felt toward me. She was so disappointed and so ashamed of me. And it was like from then on, it's like she could not unconditionally love me. Like my innocence was gone. Like I was just this piece of trash. And I distinctively remember from that moment on not feeling love from her. And also from my brother. Like he was so angry. He was so mad. And it just feels like my whole life I was trying to feel seen in any other way but that. I was trying to feel loved unconditionally with all my faults and things that had happened. It just felt like my whole world shifted at that point, and I did not understand why. I didn't get at the age of 3 or 4 that what did I do that was so bad? So how does this translate? Yes, it's possible to completely black out memories and remember them a lot later. And there's tons of forms of therapy and trauma and things that you can, tools that you can use and utilize. I think for me personally, that shaped how I felt about myself, which wasn't very good because I thought, well, there must be something wrong with me if my mom doesn't love me. There must be something wrong with me if my brother hates me so much. Like, I must be a terrible person. And I had the worst self-esteem my whole life. And I actually got like my perfectionism from that because I was like, oh, it has to be perfect or it's not good enough. And nothing was ever good enough. It was like I gave myself this bar, and even though I hit it, it's like I couldn't even be proud of myself. I was like, oh, well, there's still this or this over here or what have you, because that's how I felt. And I always looked for the outside to help me with how I felt on the inside. And I mean, obviously now I know that that's not healthy and the right way to do things. Well, so my family was I was raised Southern Baptist. I went to a private Baptist school. I was paddled for asking questions, for questioning the teacher about the Bible. Which seems so wild to me now. But that was like totally normal. So I never bought into any of that. I always had questions. I always had my own thoughts, my own whatever. And talking about the spirituality aspect, I think a lot of times I would say things that would freak my mom out, my family out. And they were like, we don't say that. We don't talk about that. You know, I think I've seen dead people since the beginning, but you know, it was when you're super little, you're like, oh, hi. But we don't tell the adults because they were like, we don't do that. And then you block it out again, blocking it out. And then it would happen randomly, like through family members. Excuse me. And that's the thing about gifts or spiritual abilities or anything like that. I don't think anybody asks, hey, I want to see dead people. You're not like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that one. You're just kind of given these things, and how you handle it is up to you. And it wasn't until I started opening myself up to all these things that I'm like, yeah, okay, now I see dead people and I can channel dead people now. So I guess that's called the medium, but that's not the extent of it. And I guess how it ties into this is because I was never religious because of going back to the sexual abuse. It was happening in other family members' family, like aunts and uncles and cousins and things like that. And everyone just kind of knew about it and didn't talk about it. Or if they did, they went to the church and the church was like, oh, we'll pray for them. The children were never protected. The children were never safe. They weren't safe from the actual molesters, and they weren't safe from their enablers. And so feeling safe was something that I never felt. And from a beginning, young age, my fight or flight was so cranked up. Living in an abusive home where there was yelling and fighting and all kinds of abuse was just the norm. And I thought, every family was like that, because that's what I was used to. And so I had no idea what a healthy dynamic was, what a healthy relationship was with myself, with other human beings, a friendship, a partnership, nothing. I had nothing to go off of, and I had no foundation. And I think that's the hardest part about healing, is that, when you don't have, or when you have that as like your baseline. I mean, the good news is there's nowhere but up, right? But the bad news is like your perception of reality is so fractured. Your lens, your view of everything is so distorted. I never felt free or safe or anything in my own body. It's interesting because after my first son was born, I started doing martial arts, and it was so therapeutic for me on many levels, because I needed to get that. I was angry. I was angry at everyone and everything. I was angry that I couldn't trust anyone. I was angry that I couldn't believe anyone. I was angry that I couldn't have friendships, relationships. I felt so isolated and so alone, and I felt like everyone fucked me over. Because we're in that energy, right? We keep attracting that. We mirror that out, and we could be the best person in the world, and it doesn't matter, because that's the energy we're putting out. We're putting out that victimized, abused, weak, no boundaries, no not aware, and not to be mean, but I had no clue. I didn't understand why I would try so hard and I could be the best person, and bad shit would just always fucking happen. And people would leave, and people would do shitty things, and I would just get hurt over and over and over again. And it's because I didn't have the awareness. I didn't have that inside of me to feel whole and whatever, to put up my boundaries, to know when someone's taking advantage of me, to have boundaries, even with my own family. And doing martial arts not only helped me get that anger out, it made me feel safe, finally, in my own body. Like, I was so in control of my own physical body that it didn't matter what, if a 200-pound man would come at me and attack me, I knew how to handle myself. It gave me that feeling, that confidence for the very first time of like, you can't at least physically hurt me. Now, if you hurt me emotionally or whatever, it's because I let you. But at least like I had that, like that was my first stepping stone. And that'll be another video though, because little did I know my whole reason for learning jujitsu was to later be able to help my son. Life is so fucked up. All right, I'm kind of going in circles here. I don't really know where I left off with the sexual abuse, but, and again, it's not a topic that anybody wants to talk about. I feel lucky that I have a partner in my life to help me heal that in a safe place now.
I missed something. Can you say it again?
Alexa, stop. That was weird. So I feel lucky that I am in a good place now and in a safe place now where I can work on healing these things. But again, this is more of a reason that I wanted to open my spiritual gifts more, because I knew that, you know, we aren't just our physical bodies. We are our emotional bodies. We are our mental bodies. We are spiritual bodies. I was always very connected to the spiritual world, just not the religious aspect of it, the way they wanted me to be. And the way I was connected to it was very shunned. So I feel like I was very shunned and shamed and told to be quiet and muted and, you know, sit there and look pretty, but don't speak, you know? And, yeah, what a bunch of bullshit. But, I feel like if I were to, the whole point of these videos is to help someone either get help or remember. Because at first I didn't want to remember. I started remembering shit and I was like, nope, nope, nope. My first instinct is like, not going there, because it was so painful. But now I'm actually grateful for it because it explains on so many levels all the things that have happened to me in my life, all the failed relationships, all the, you know, failed everything that I never got to do or did or whatever. And actually why I made certain decisions in my life, you know, that ended up being good. So I'm grateful for it all. I think the mother wound, I mean, and my father was just absent. He was dealing with his own crap. He wasn't able to be a father. So I viewed men in a very negative light. I viewed women in a very negative light. And so, of course, I viewed myself in a negative light. And I was like, wow, like, I have to believe that not all people suck, because why the fuck are we here? And I still have a hard time because I'm able to see through people's souls and, you know, connecting with people who are similar to me and that are, you know, that resonate with me. But it also a reason why my spirit guides have led me and guided me to help other people, because using the tools of energy clearing, energy healing, have helped me raise my children, have helped me heal my own trauma, have helped me help others. And it's an awareness. It's almost like if those things can be brought up to the surface, those feelings need to be felt. They need to be expressed, exposed, to be released. And if we keep pushing everything down, that's when we cause dis-ease and we can make ourselves sick, and it's not healthy. That can express itself in many different ways, but that's not the way out. The way out is not to push it down and keep our heads in the sand and not talk about it and keep it shameful and all these things. So, you know, I feel like there have been several things in my life that have triggered a certain path or a certain thing to open. And this is just one of those things that, you know, I'm able to now look at on a multidimensional layered level and have the understanding of how it's all connected and how they relate and how to heal this and how to release this. And we're never 100% healed, right? I think the perfectionist in me is like, I want to be totally free of my darkness, but we can't be 100% light because then we wouldn't be human, right? We would float away and be angels or something else. So, you know, working with it, learning how to integrate these things, how to, and working with others. Like, I think my children are my biggest teachers. They always have been, and I think they always will be. They challenge you to bend and flex and stretch in ways that you didn't know were possible, that you didn't know you could. And the immense love. And that was the thing. I think a part of me is completely fulfilled in creating my own family now because I didn't have that family that I always needed so desperately, that I wanted so desperately. I wanted a brother or sisterly love. I wanted a mother love, a father love. Like, I just remember thinking at a young age, I'm going to make my own family someday and it's going to be so amazing because this is such shit. And I've done that. And I'm doing that in all of its glory. And it's really fucking beautiful. Because the amount of love that when you grow a human inside of your own body and you birth it, it creates worlds, and it's life-changing in so many ways, and it's just an undescribable love that, honestly, when I had my first son is when I was talking to him in my belly and I was psychically connecting with him in my stomach. But that's when I started really coming back to God, divine source, creator of all that is, whatever words resonate with you. That's when creators started to come back into my life. And I invited it in. It literally just takes just an ask. And again, that was something I pushed away for so long because I thought God was tied to religion. I thought God was tied to that thing. I thought, you know, I remember being little and you know, going to a private school and having to go to church and Sunday school and all these things. Like, I remember hearing the stories that they would tell, and they would be talking about all these other things that I would get something totally different out of the story. And I just remember thinking like, whoa, like Jesus was a fucking magician. Like, I wanted to be like him because he knew what the fuck was up. And it had nothing to do with their agenda that they were pushing. I don't know. I feel like I've gone totally off track with this. And tying in spirituality with sexual abuse. But I have to believe that, you know, our higher selves decided these things before we came here. Because you think, why does anyone do these things to children? And the conclusion that I've come to is that, well, number one, you have to wake up somehow. You come here to experience shitty shit to overcome it. That's how we grow our soul here, right? Like, this is what Earth School is all about. But honestly, it was like the forgiving process. You don't forgive for them, you forgive for you. And at the end of the day, I don't know the name of construction guy or neighborhood kid, and I don't really want to, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that there was a part of them that was unhealed, that was broken, that honestly just wanted love. I don't think they did what they did to necessarily hurt me. I think that they just needed love. And if I can identify with that part of them, I can forgive for me, so I can move on, so I can be at peace with it. I mean, because yeah, people do shitty shit, like even murderers, like, yes, you know, even they are worthy of love. I think everyone is worthy of love. And if everyone just knew love, if everyone just could heal their broken hearts, we wouldn't have war, we wouldn't have crime, we wouldn't have these horrible things that we have in humanity. I think the hardest part, you know, about the forgiveness is going back to my situation with my family, like how they treated me afterwards, and just, not that it's not forgivable, but it was, apparently they don't know love either. They don't know how or what to do with what they might have suspected, or I feel like they were just like, well, hopefully she'll forget, or hopefully she doesn't remember, like, you know, but it's there. The trauma in your body is there. And what do you do with that? How do you clear that? How do you work with that? You turn that pain into power. You learn how to alchemize it, and you learn how to use it for good, to help other people, to help your children, to Yeah, it's like, it's a whole process and you have to look at a big picture. You can't look at just that piece, because if you look at just that piece, you're like, ooh, that's the ooh. That nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to acknowledge or let that come out because it's embarrassing and it's shameful. Well, we're all done with that now. We're in the phase of having real conversations, real talks, getting rid of our trauma so we don't pass it on to our children, breaking those cycles, breaking those, people call them generational curses, breaking those things that were handed down, that were done to us that we had no control over. And let's take our control back. What do we have control over? What can we do about it now? How can we use it for good, for the highest good? All right. I feel like I need to wrap this up here. But you know, it's like a to be continued. There isn't like an ending to it. Because even to this day, I've been healing the same thing for the last 4 years, 3 years, 3 years, 4 years. And it just comes around in waves. You know, it's like a spiral, and you just do another round of healing. Healing isn't linear. It's like time. Like you keep shedding the layers and the layers and the layers. But yeah, I hope I didn't throw anyone too under the bus here, and I was respectful of everyone. But that is my story. And I hope that this has done whatever it was meant to do for the highest good.